Viewers, is the US green card no longer a guarantee for your stay in the United States? Reports have emerged from the US that green card holders, particularly elderly Indians, are being subjected to secondary inspections, overnight detention, and pressure to surrender their legal status at US airports. The scrutiny conducted by the US Customs and Border Protection officers is reportedly targeting individuals who spend extended periods outside the country. Reports say that US authorities are pressuring them to either face detention or surrender their legal status. In fact, Indians are not the only ones being targeted. A German national and green card holder was detained and allegedly, quote-unquote, violently interrogated by the US immigration authorities when he returned to the US on the 7th of March. So what are the legal options available to Indians who face similar treatment? Well, US attorneys are now saying that green card holders should not agree to give up their legal status as they can seek recourse from the courts.
You were watching the News Hour at 10. Agenda, debate number 2 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
Let's take this across to our guest. Joining us, we have with us Bharat Barai, who's the chairman of the US-India Community Foundation. We also have with us Kripa Upadhyay, immigration attorney at the Buchalter PC Seattle office. Thanks so much for joining us today. Bharat Barai, if I can come to you first. What would you have to say about the reasons for this increased scrutiny? Is it a change in government policy? And what really is your advice to those who are perhaps traveling? Because there are some who in fact come out and say that now is perhaps not the best time to travel, given the kind of strict norms and the possible denial of re-entry into the United States.
The law was always there that it's supposed to be permanent residents in USA and visit outside from time to time. But legally, as long as you came back within 365 days, it was okay. So there was liberal interpretation of the law. Now, after Trump has come, and there is a scrutiny of the so-called illegal immigration, some of the legal migrants are also being harassed by some abusive or overusing Customs and Border Patrol agents that they are trying to threaten some of the senior citizens or people who live outside USA for a few months. So this is a more rigid interpretation of the law that already exists.
What's your advice?
What is my advice? My advice
green
is
card holders, because it's being told that particularly senior citizens, those whose children may be, working in the United States, for instance, are the ones who are the most vulnerable to this kind of a situation. What would your advice to them be?
Well, what's happening is that during the winter months, I know I live in Chicago area. Many of the parents, they do go to India, and when they try to come back, they do try to give them hard time. Many of them are not as well educated. They are not able to argue as well, and they are subject to threat by these people. The advice is very simple. A, try to minimize your stay outside USA, but I don't think 2 or 3 months will matter. B, do not give up your green card, because the Customs and Border Patrol agent can threaten you. They might sometimes detain you overnight, but they do not have the authority to take away your green card unless under the threat and fear you sign that form I-407 and surrender your green card.
Okay.
So the advice is keep your green card. It is the immigration judge that has to give you a hearing, and he is the only one who can take away the green card.
Okay, let me bring in Kripa as well. Kripa, and your experience as an immigration attorney, how many such cases have you come across recently? Has it gone up, and by what kind of percentage are we talking about? What really is happening on ground?
There is a massive increased enforcement, and that is true across all visa categories. We are hearing not only of Indian nationals that are being essentially put into what Customs and Border Protection calls secondary inspection, right? And so, again, these are individuals that may be older in age. I don't necessarily have an age breakdown, but the fact of the matter is these are individuals that are coming off of 12-hour, 16-hour journeys into the US that are being placed in secondary for about 7 to 8 hours at times. The bright line rule for immigration is there is something called continuous physical presence that lawful permanent residents are required to maintain in the US, right? And per the rule, lawful permanent residency, continuous physical presence is defined as no absence outside of the US for more than 180 days. Anytime you've been out of the US for more than 180 days consecutively, you are considered to be applying for readmission, right? And that's what CBP is essentially using. The disadvantage for senior citizens in particular is they don't have a job in the US. They probably don't have assets in the US. They probably don't have an ongoing bank account in the US. Those are all things that are discretionary to an immigration officer to review to show that this person did not intend to abandon residence, right? And when senior citizens don't have that, they've spent 16 hours on a plane. They've now spent, 7 to 8 hours in detention at an immigration airport. They're essentially being told, if you want to leave, you can. Why don't you please just sign the statement? They're signing the statement without realizing that it is only a judge, an immigration judge, that has authorization to revoke your green card.
Right.
The other thing is that 6-month presence is what we in the law call a rebuttable presumption, right? Meaning they get to charge you with it, but the burden is on them to prove that you abandoned residence. It's just a whole lot easier for them to say, well, this person gave up their green card and that's that, right? So that's what's been happening. On the other side, we are also hearing reports now. There's now reports of a Canadian, I believe a German, I think a British citizen that have all been arrested and sent to immigration detention centers for alleged violations of their B2 tourist visas or their ESTA entry visas. So this is a whole new era of
Absolutely. It's a complete, that's of course a different era compared to the green card holders, because there are a fair number of Indians who actually have that document, and that's perhaps why this is of immense interest for us here in India as well. Bharat Barai, Kripa Dhate, thank you so much for joining our viewers and explaining it to them in terms of what to expect as far as these developments are concerned.